So in this following section, we're going to examine different responses to Korea's attempts to preserve its independence or to regain its independence during the colonial period. Not everybody was as supportive as Homer Hulbert, as we will see. So remember, it's extremely important for us to understand the underlying principles of imperialism, where we have countries that go out and conquer a territory in order to extract it for its resources. Now, if you witnessed a country that was on the verge of losing its sovereignty, how would you react? How would you behave? Would you try to help the country to preserve its sovereignty, or would you side with the aggressor? Let's take a look at Ernest Bethel, who was an Englishman born in Bristol, England. He was in Korea during the Russo-Japanese War and was a correspondent for the Daily Chronicle in London. He also established and published the Daehanmail Shinbo newspaper, or the Korea Daily News. And since he was British as the publisher, he was able to avoid surveillance by the Japanese. But we will see that the circumstances change after the Forced Protectorate Treaty was signed and thrust upon the Koreans in 1905. So as you can see here from the terms of the Protectorate Treaty, that basically the Japanese, it took away Korea's powers of diplomacy, and Korea was no longer able to contact and to interact directly with other foreign countries. It could not enter into any foreign treaties, and many of the treaties that Korea had already signed with foreign countries were negated. And so, in short, Japan took over this aspect, and Korea lost its diplomatic powers. Now, as a result of the signing of the Protectorate Treaty, we saw various resistance movements that began to emerge in Korea. And some of these were the Righteous Army movements, which Bethel reported upon in his newspaper. This was not something that the Japanese were thrilled about. They didn't want news of the Righteous Army's activities to spread throughout the country or to be known outside of Korea, but because he was British and was able to avoid censorship and surveillance, he was able to report on it. And he also was not shy about expressing his opposition to the Protectorate Treaty. Now, another important individual at this time was An Chang-ho. An Chang-ho had entered into a school which was established by Underwood in 1895, and so there he received an education that was a new Western-style education, and in 1897 he joined the Independence Club, taking charge of a local branch. So not only was he exposed to Western ideas, Western concepts, and had a Western education, but he was also very active in supporting Korean independence. In 1902, An Chang-ho, he left for the United States, where he would organize gatherings of Koreans abroad. And in 1905, he established the 공립협회, which later would develop into the Korean National Association. He also published the 공립신보 newspaper, and in 1919 participated in the provisional government in Shanghai, which was established after the March 1st movement in 1919 and was established in Shanghai in order to be a representative of Korea in a quasi-official capacity. But An Chang-ho, as you can see throughout his lifetime, was very involved with either supporting and protecting Korean sovereignty or trying to regain Korean independence. On the other hand, we have individuals like Durham Stevens. Durham Stevens was the Secretary of the United States Legation in Japan in 1873. And in 1894, he was very critical of the Qing and legitimized the Sino-Japanese War, supporting Japan's victory over the Chinese. In 1901, Allen recommended Stevens as advisor to the Korean Foreign Office. In 1904, the Japanese government urged the Korean government to hire Stevens as a diplomatic advisor following the Korea-Japan Agreement of 1904. And so this follows where Japan is involved in a conflict, the Russo-Japanese War with Russia, and is starting to really make inroads into Korea at this time. And following the Korea-Japan Agreement, financial and diplomatic advisors were to be designated by Japan. So it should come as no surprise that since Japan recommended Stevens, that Stevens was rather partial to Japan. And the Koreans were not favorable to this. So two Koreans, Chang In-won and Chun Myung-un, they did not like the fact that Stevens supported Japan's colonization of Korea, and they did not like that Stevens legitimized Japan's forcing Korea to become a protectorate of Japan. And his views he expressed in a 1908 interview with the San Francisco Chronicle. So as a result of this, Korean immigrants in the 공립협회 that was run and organized by An Chang-ho, they began to discuss this, and eventually Chang and Chun shot and assassinated Stevens in San Francisco. However, what Stevens represented was a general lack of support from Western countries. So although that there were American missionaries and other individuals like Bethel who were sympathetic to Korea, who were supportive of Korea's independence movement and independence activism, there were others who were not as supportive, and in fact who sided with the Japanese. And this again should not be surprising, considering that in 1902 England and Japan, they signed an alliance which formalized the alliance between the two countries. And in 1905, the Taft-Katsura Agreement was signed, which formalized the alliance between Japan and the United States. So once Japan defeated Russia in the Russo-Japanese War, it had eliminated China, eliminated Russia as competitors over Korea. It had guaranteed support from the British and the Americans, and so there was nobody left to contest or to challenge the Japanese, and this opened the pathway for Korea to becoming a protectorate of Japan.